Did you know that apparently when therapist asks you about your emotions and what you're feeling, they want you to describe where that feeling exists in your body rather than intellectualizing it and trying to describe it using thoughts? So instead of saying, "What are you feeling?" they should be saying, "Where are you feeling?" Right? Why aren't they using that word? Anyway, I'm not a therapist, but I am someone who really wants to master her emotions and try to break free of negative thought cycles. And so this is a video that may help you do that if you want to stick around. Let's get into it. Ultimately, one of the goals of therapy is to help the client work through the emotion so that they can think more clearly. In order to work through the emotion, you have to feel it, you have to process it in your body, not just think your way out of it. You actually have to sit with it, let it pass, and then you have to analyze what judgment you are having that led to that emotion. The most important thing that you can do to control your own happiness is to get your thoughts under control. There's a distress cycle that a lot of people follow. First, you experience something stressful that leads to a thought that includes a judgment. As a result of that judgment, you have an emotional reaction, and that is usually an unpleasant one. So now you have this unpleasant emotion swirling around in your body, and you start to ruminate. So then you're having more judgmental and negative thoughts, more unpleasant emotions, and the cycle continues. And you try to break that cycle by using some sort of coping mechanism. That coping mechanism could be scrolling, it could be shopping, it could be playing video games, it could be venting to a friend, it could be substance abuse. It could also be taking some action to try to fix your circumstances. It could be a lot of things. Ultimately, the goal is to have fewer judgments about your experiences and your thoughts, and that will lead to fewer unpleasant emotions. If you're still with me, thank you so much. My name is Charlotte, and I am trying to go on this self-development journey. I want to be the best version of myself that I can be because I truly believe I have so much potential and I want to achieve as much of it as I can. And I hope that if this video found you, you are similar. So if you want to consider subscribing, I would really appreciate it. Thank you so much. Let's continue with the video. In that cycle, I've laid out two different types of coping mechanisms. The first is the emotion-focused coping mechanism, and that includes the scrolling and the venting and the shopping and all of these things that we do in order to distract ourselves from what we're actually feeling. We're waiting out the feeling. We're numbing out in some way. Now, sometimes these coping mechanisms can be innocuous, all you lose is time. Sometimes these coping mechanisms can actually be harmful, such as substance abuse or online shopping to the point where you're in debt, or over-exercising to the point where you hurt yourself. Now, distracting yourself can be helpful in some situations, especially if you're dealing with an incredibly painful emotion that you can't seem to figure out how to release from your body. But ultimately, the distracting does not allow you to get to the core of what the judgment was that led you to feeling that way. The second type of coping mechanism that prevents you from actually feeling your feelings is more useful in some situations. These are frequently referred to as action-oriented coping mechanisms. Examples of this include problem solving, making plans, seeking out information, actively engaging in behaviors that address the stressor. And they are considered maladaptive if you believe it or not. So obviously this isn't as bad as an addiction, for example, right? It's definitely considered more valuable than the emotion-focused coping mechanisms because in our culture, we idolize productivity. If you're getting something done, if you're changing circumstances, that's considered positive. The people who are inclined towards action-oriented coping mechanisms tend to be very successful in life, but it comes with the downside of failing to address the internal distress. The people who go this route often focus on changing their environment in order to control their emotional state. In some situations, it could be an incredibly important step. You may be in a dangerous situation, for example, in your home. You may have a really volatile an unhealthy workplace environment and you need to get a new job. But in other situations, it could be a band-aid solution. For example, if you do not have high self-esteem and you think, if I changed my appearance and lost weight and looked different, would I feel better about myself? And you decide, yes, I would. That's the problem I'm having. So you go out and you do a glow up, but you don't actually address your internal hatred towards yourself. The glow up's not going to work. The glow up is a band-aid. Sometimes taking action is just a way to push aside those feelings and not address them, just like you would be if you were scrolling on your phone. Emotion-focused and action-oriented coping mechanisms are considered maladaptive. They deal with the stressor or the emotional pain using short-term relief without looking at the long-term impact. The skill that will lead to more long-term results when it comes to feeling happier is cognitive reframing. This involves changing your initial thoughts and judgments at the beginning of that cycle and reframing the conclusions that you draw from the stressor you experience. And ultimately, that's going to help you with your emotional regulation. Here are some examples. Agatha and Sophia. Agatha engages in maladaptive coping mechanisms, and Sophia has learned the power of cognitive reframing. Agatha had a fight with one of her best friends, and her immediate thought was, why did we have a fight? Do they even care about me? Maybe we're not as close as we thought. What if I lose this friend? All of these judgments are swirling through her head, and it's stressing her out. She starts to engage in emotion-focused coping mechanisms. She calls a friend that knows them both and starts venting. That venting turns into ranting, and she starts ranting about how she's right and her friend is wrong, and her friend should apologize to her. And ultimately, it leaves Agatha feeling angrier. Then her friend that she's talking to gives her feedback and starts to say, well, Agatha, maybe you played a role in this fight also that you may want to consider here. And then Agatha does an emotional 180 and starts thinking, wow, am I the bad friend? Or Agatha might get mad at her friend she's venting to. Like, there are so many emotions running through her right now that she cannot keep it straight, which leads Agatha to doing an emotional 180, and she starts beating herself up and thinking that she always does this. Why do I always ruin friendships? Why can't I keep anything good in my life? She's throwing a pity party and she's stuck in a victim mindset. Essentially, she's spiraling. So the venting made her unpleasant feelings worse. To escape that pain, she scrolls on TikTok and then she's marketed a bunch of stuff and she buys a bunch of things, and before she knows it, she spent $500 and nothing is resolved. She still does not feel good about the situation. Sophia, on the other hand, has done the work to learn how to reframe her initial thoughts and judgments around the experience. Her initial reaction is thinking, we had a fight, it's normal, it happens, we're very close, we love each other, we just need to talk it out and we'll get to the bottom of this. I just have to understand my friend's perspective, and I'm sure we'll come out stronger as a result of this fight. So instead of venting, instead of reacting, she is thinking, okay, this isn't the end of the world. I don't need to feel like it is. I can address this with a clear head and not have to feel these strong feelings and then distract from them. That initial reaction and judgment of the situation is the thing that makes all of the difference. I'm going to call it there. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate you, and I hope this helped. Please consider liking, commenting, subscribing if you think you got some value out of this, and I'm going to put another video up here that you might like. So until next time. And now it is my favorite time of filming. Alexa, turn on the air conditioner.
Okay.
Look how loud it is. I can't film with that. It's too loud.